Mirror, mirror, trigger and traumas. Two of the most disturbing words. How do you deal with both? Today, we're going to have a discussion on ways that you can cope. Just for today. Or be able to push through for today. Hello, my subby buddies. Hi, chosen ones. Welcome back to Beyond Your Reflection. I am chosen. And this is Beyond Your Reflection, a channel created by me, but designed for you. Welcome back. Happy holidays. Or as the songwriter says, it's the most wonderful time of the year. For some people. Not I. Says me. But I'm learning. It used to be Christmas time. Thanksgiving up until Christmas time used to be the most wonderful time of the year because you had so much to look forward to. Family time, new presents, like there was just so much. And then adulting happened. And then maybe there were some triggers and traumas that happened along the way that made this maybe not so much of one of your favorite times of the year. For me, it's dealing with grief. And I'm still learning. As I stated, that's the purpose of this channel, so we can learn and glow up together. And I know you guys are probably wondering, why would you pick such a sad topic during the holiday season? Because a lot of us are sad around this season. A lot of us do not know how to push through during this season because maybe this time frame is a trigger or a trauma that triggered an emotion behind the events. For me, it's dealing with grief. I'm not a big fan of the holidays because the people that I truly adored are no longer here. Mind you, I still have family and friends that I can celebrate with. Don't get it twisted on that. But my mother's not here. My brother's not here. And my poetry mentor, Tavis, 5 years ago, this is the time frame that he was in transitioning in the hospital around this time. And then he passed away the day after Christmas. And then last year, his brother passed away the day before his death. Tavis passed away on the 28th. And last year, his brother passed away on the 27th. So it's a lot that comes along with the holiday season that kind of takes the joy out of it. It's a trigger and a trauma at the same time. So I'm learning how to be able to push through in their honor to bring back that joy and excitement. That's just me. But I know that there's some of you guys out there. It's no longer enjoyable. And it's not so much about the holiday season. I'm just speaking also in general. Triggers and traumas, two different words that carry so much weight behind it. When I think of trigger, first thing pops in my head, obviously, is a gun. The reason why I symbolize or it automatically pops in is because with a gun, while fully loaded, it takes a certain emotion or lack of for you to actually pull that trigger and release those mechanisms, also known as the bullets that fly out of that gun. It could be the intention to cause harm or to get attention. To me, the bullets are words, emotions, movement, moments. Not so much of an actual bullet, to say the least, but the gun is the traumas, the buildup of everything that you went through. And then when you finally get to that breaking point, you pull that trigger. If you think about it, you guys, the definition of the word trigger, well, one of them is the cause an event or a certain situation to happen. So as I stated before, it is to cause harm or to raise the alarm, to get attention or get attention. I'm going to get your attention by inflicting this hurt on you, or I'm going to get your attention by withdrawing. Nobody really knows what those bullets stand for because maybe you put a silencer on it. You haven't truly spoken about it. But there are certain things or there are certain ways that this gun is loaded before you pull that trigger. There's certain things, certain words that were spoken, certain events that took place, certain issues that caused you to load this gun, put your finger on it, and then an event or a situation happened and it pulled you out of yourself. Think about the Hulk. What did he always say? I'm good. Just don't piss me off. And then when you piss me off, do not be upset because of the reaction to your actions. Do not be upset when these bullets start to fly because now you have triggered an emotion out of me. It could be one that you had suppressed, and it could be one that had been at the top of that shelf and you was waiting for that one person to pull it out of you. But, yes, that word. Sometimes, you guys, you don't even have to pull the trigger. You can let them know, hey, I have a weapon in my hand. And that weapon can be the word, meditation, however you are able to cope, smiling, singing, dancing. Use a more powerful weapon to get people's attention, if that makes sense. Because the old you that people know, they're used to you snapping. They're used to you pulling that trigger, honey, popping off. They did not care. You did not care because you didn't give it a second thought. But then when you think of it now, you're like, you know what? I'm good. Push all the buttons you want, baby. As the saying says, that's above me now. Or ain't nobody got time for that. I'm bigger and better. But, there's that word again. For those of you that are not equipped or not quite sure how to deal with when you are triggered, I'm here to let you know you don't have to always have to pop off. Because there's no weapon that is formed against you. It can't prosper unless you let it. Guns don't kill people. People with guns, they kill. So you can have your finger on the trigger. But does not mean that you have to actually pull it. Now, mind you, there are some things that took place within your life, my life, growing up that we consider triggers. But look at where you're at now. This is how I know how strong you are. I am, because of what we have survived, what we have went through, all these triggers, even the bullets that flew in our directions, that were coming to us to kill, steal, and destroy, to take our joy. But look, where you at, baby? You still here. You still standing. What meant harm for you actually turned out to be good in your favor, because now you are able to help someone else get past those triggers and those traumas. It's just like a drug or alcohol anonymous class. Room full of strangers. But their trigger was either that drug or drink of choice. But every last one of them around each other, each one of those bullets had some type of power to them that they were able to help the next person to their left or their right in that circle. You never know who that one person is that may come to you and say, hey, I see you got your finger on that trigger, but hold on. Think about what's going to happen before you pop off. And again, I say there were a lot of bullets that came your way. There was a lot of trauma that triggered a lot of emotions. And trauma is a very strong word. It's stronger than trigger, even though both of those two go together. But trauma is actually the emotional shock following the event. So the trauma is those bullets that either you popped off or that came in your direction that triggered an emotion or a response. But again, I say, look at how you overcame it. I can speak for me, as always. I always start with myself because I don't know who's out there that can relate. But for me, rape is and always will be a trigger, because that is a trauma that I survived. So now I know how to speak to other young women that have survived that bullet that came in their direction. It's going to always be a trigger. Always. That's why I hate, like in Hollywood, when I see it on movies and on films, it's like, did you really have to? Why did that have to be a part of the scene? It's stupid. But I've learned how to not so much allow that particular bullet to consume me. It entered one way and exited out the other. That's how life should be. Yeah, you've been through so much. I have been through, still going through. The bullet may enter one way, but it exited another. or even if that bullet stayed within you, do you realize you can peel back that layer and remove that wound? Now, you may still have the battle scar to remind you of what happened, but that's also another battle scar to remind you of how you overcame what happened. Another trigger for me when I mentioned about the holidays, like I said, it's surrounded by death. You don't really think of the most happiest time of the year for most people, even those of us that grew up with Christmas or Thanksgiving being our favorite. You don't think of that as a trigger or a trauma. But around this time, starting around Thanksgiving-ish, all the way to around this time up until the new year, when we had the funeral, it's an emotional trigger for me because I remember the trauma, the emotion, the shock that came following that event, the disbelief that one of the most important people again in my life is gone. And it's like, really? That is another trigger for me. Or should I say, no, trauma, not so much trigger. That's a trauma because it's an emotion and a shock following the event. But I've learned how to put that bullet on the shelf. Okay. Yes, it's a sad event. It's a sad moment. It's a sad time. But I need to learn how to push through. I need to learn how to not allow that to consume me. I remember I talked about this. I think this was like maybe my third episode when it dealt with a baby, about how not to sit in mess, change that diaper, honey, and get up and keep moving. As traumatic as that event was, I had to let that bullet enter and exit at another location. Now, trigger and traumas, like I said, are two very, very strong and powerful words, together or separate. But again, I say, dealing more so much of trigger, you have to think about what triggered you, what set you off, what was the emotion, what happened before, during, and after that time. Why did it? Is it that serious? It's probably just a little flesh wound. Put a Band-Aid on that, you good. A couple of stitches and keep moving. But if it's something that's going to need surgery to repair, and when I mean surgery, I mean like really digging deep within and thinking about the choices that comes along with that emotion. Did you have to pop off? Was it worth getting upset? Was it worth the curse words that you used? Was it worth the language, the emotion? Because you know words are very powerful once spoken. Sometimes you can't take them back. And those words are also triggers. It's another bullet. Because you popping off at the mouth, not thinking about the reaction or the trauma that you're causing from your actions. And I'm not saying that it's you, I'm just speaking in general. People do not understand how they are the cause of triggers and traumas. But I'm stating to you, you have survived it. which means you are more powerful than you think. And you know, when all those bullets came flying in your direction, maybe you did the Matrix and you dodged it. And like I said, maybe you took one, but you got up and you kept going. You did not allow that to defeat you. Now, it's going to be certain days, certain months, certain times that's going to trigger you, or that's going to remind you of that particular trauma. But you don't have to hold on to that. There's ways to cope and get past it. Like I say, no weapon that is formed against you shall and can prosper, because you're just holding it in your hand. You haven't quite used it yet. But also, think about it. You could take that same weapon and replace those negative bullets with something positive. You know what? Instead of popping off and cursing and whatever, I'm going to just walk away. Okay. Instead of crying about it and getting upset and just really want to pop off, let's take that breath. Sit back. Think about it. Because the triggers and the traumas that happen to you in your life, you do not want to be that person to create those same moments or issues for somebody else. This is called being the bigger person. This is when you realize that you are more powerful than you think, than you probably give yourself credit for. But if you actually sit back and think about it, the amount of trauma that you've endured and you went through, and you know how the pain felt that came with that, why would you want to inflict that on anybody else? You wouldn't, right? So, you will think about it. Gun in hand, I don't necessarily have to use it. It's just here to show you and to show me I have something in my hand that has power. I have something in my heart, which is your weapon also, that has power. I have something right here that has power. You are a weapon by itself. But you have to know the power from within on how to use it, on how powerful you can be when you are triggered, or when something triggers you, or when you think about a specific trauma. You can think about, okay, I went through that, but look where I am now. He brought me to it, and he also brought me through it. You can do anything if you put this to use, this to use, this to use. Just think about it. So what's your weapon of choice? Leave it down in the comments and let me know. It's going to be a part 2 to this as well, because we're going to dissect the meaning of it. If this episode meant anything to you, thumbs up. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Become a subby buddy. I would truly appreciate it. I thank you guys so much. Leave a comment. Like I said, talk to me and I'll talk back. Until then, I love everything about you. And so should you. Pow.